Captain Sarah Chen stared at the massive alien ship through the bridge windows of the Earth vessel Endeavour. The ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Its dark metal surface was covered in spikes and strange symbols that seemed to glow red in the starlight. "They're scanning us again," reported Lieutenant Park from his station. His voice was tight with worry. Same energy signature as before, but stronger this time. Sarah nodded. They had been trying to make peaceful contact for 2 hours now. The Endeavour was humanity's first deep space exploration ship, sent to map new star systems beyond Earth's solar system. They were supposed to be alone out here in the empty darkness between stars. Finding another intelligent species was exciting. Finding one that refused to talk was terrifying. "Try the universal greeting protocol again," Sarah ordered. "All frequencies." The communications officer shook her head. "Still nothing, Captain. They're just sitting there watching us." Then the alien ship moved. It turned slowly until its front was pointing directly at the Endeavour. Weapons ports opened along its hull like hungry mouths. Sarah felt her heart jump into her throat. "Incoming. Transmission," the communications officer called out suddenly. "It's coming through on our emergency channel." "Put it on screen." The main display flickered to life. Sarah found herself looking at something that had stepped out of her worst nightmares. The alien was tall and covered in thick gray scales. Its head was long and pointed with 4 yellow eyes that glowed like hot coals. When it opened its mouth to speak, Sarah could see rows of sharp teeth. "Primitive mammals," the creature said, in perfect English. Its voice was deep and cold. "You will listen and obey. I am Commander Vexhai of the Zelkarian Empire. Your species is now known to us." Sarah stepped forward, trying to look calm even though her hands were shaking. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earthship Endeavour. We come in peace and hope, to establish friendly relations between our peoples." The alien commander made a sound that might have been laughter. It was not a pleasant sound. "Peace? Friendship?" Commander Vexhai showed more of those terrible teeth. "You misunderstand your situation, small creature. The Zelkarian Empire has claimed 847 star systems. We have enslaved 93 different species. Your kind will join them." "We're not interested in being enslaved," Sarah said firmly. "Your interests are not relevant." The commander leaned closer to the camera. "You will return to your home world. You will deliver this message to your leaders. The great Emperor Vashatar offers your species a choice." The display changed to show a star map. Sarah recognized the shape of human space, though it looked tiny compared to the vast red area marked as Zelkarian territory. "First choice," the commander continued. "Submit to the Empire. Give us 90% of all your resources. Half your population will serve as workers on our worlds. The rest will remain on your planets to produce what we require. In return, we will not destroy you completely." Sarah felt sick to her stomach. "And the second choice? Complete annihilation. We will turn your worlds into ash and space dust." The commander seemed to enjoy saying this. "Choose wisely, mammals. You have 30 of your days to decide." The transmission ended. The alien ship turned and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the Endeavour alone in the darkness. Sarah sank into her captain's chair. Around her, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence. Finally, Lieutenant Park spoke up. "Captain, what do we do now?" "We go home," Sarah said quietly. "We deliver the message." The journey back to Earth took 6 days. Sarah spent most of that time writing her report and trying not to think about what she had seen in Zelkarian space. Commander Vexhai had shown her recordings of their conquered worlds, cities in ruins, alien beings working in terrible conditions, mass graves. The worst part was the Zelkarian prison planet. Sarah had watched in horror as guards tortured prisoners for entertainment. The screams still echoed in her dreams. When the Endeavour reached Earth, Sarah found the planet already preparing for war. Admiral James Morrison met her ship personally. "We picked up your emergency transmission," Morrison explained as they walked through the naval base. He was an older man with gray hair and serious eyes. "The President has called an emergency session of the United Earth Council." "What are our chances, Admiral?" Sarah asked. Morrison stopped walking and turned to face. Honestly? Not good. Our entire fleet is maybe 200 ships. Most of them are cargo vessels we've converted for military use. We have no idea how many ships the Zelkarians have. Thousands, Sarah said quietly. Maybe tens of thousands. I saw their fleet bases on the way out of their space. Then we need to be smart about this. Morrison's voice was grim but determined. We have some advantages they don't know about. Our scientists have been working on new weapons, and we know something about humans that the Zelkarians don't. What's that? Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. When someone threatens to destroy everything we love, we don't just fight back, we fight dirty. The United Earth Council meeting lasted for 18 hours. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered to hear Sarah's report. When she finished, the room was completely silent. Finally, the president of the European Federation stood up. The question before us is simple, she said. Do we submit to slavery or do we fight? Fight with what? Demanded the delegate from the African Union. You heard Captain Chen's report. These aliens have conquered hundreds of worlds. They have weapons we can barely imagine. Then we die fighting, said the representative from the Americas. I won't condemn half of humanity to slavery. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted to negotiate, others wanted to surrender and hope for mercy. But slowly, a consensus emerged. When the final vote was taken, it was unanimous. Earth would fight. The next morning, Admiral Morrison stood before the assembled fleet commanders. Behind him, screens showed images from the Zelkarian Empire. Slave camps, destroyed cities, mass executions. Ladies and gentlemen, Morrison began, we have 24 days to prepare for war. The enemy expects us to surrender or die quickly. We're going to do neither. He pressed a button and the screens changed to show technical diagrams of new weapons. For the past 10 years, our mining companies have been developing asteroid processing equipment, magnetic accelerators that can launch 1,000-ton chunks of metal at incredible speeds, fusion plants that can power entire cities, industrial fabricators that can build anything we need. Morrison's smile was cold and dangerous. The Zelkarians think they're fighting a primitive species. They're about to learn that humans are very good at turning peaceful tools into weapons of war. In the outer solar system, work crews began converting asteroid mining platforms into weapons. The massive magnetic launchers that normally moved raw ore were now being loaded with dense metal projectiles. On Earth, factories that made consumer goods switched to producing military equipment around the clock. Every nation contributed what it could. The Japanese provided advanced robotics. The Russians offered their expertise in nuclear weapons. The Americans shared their space technology. But the most important work was happening in secret laboratories around the world. Scientists studied every scrap of data from Sarah's encounter with the Zelkarians. They analyzed the alien ship's construction, its energy signatures, even the biology of Commander Vexhai himself. Dr. Elena Vasquez led one of these research teams. She was a small woman with dark hair and intense eyes who had spent her career studying extremophile bacteria. Now she was looking at something much more dangerous. Their evolution is fascinating, she explained to her team. High-gravity world, probably twice Earth normal. That's why they're so strong and why their bones are so dense. But it also means they evolved certain vulnerabilities. What kind of vulnerabilities? Asked her assistant. Dr. Vasquez smiled. It was not a nice smile. The kind that might help us kill them. Time was running out. In 20 days, the Zelkarian Empire would return for Earth's answer. The aliens expected either submission or a quick slaughter. They were going to get a very different kind of surprise. Emperor Vashitar sat on his throne of black metal, watching the countdown timer above his massive throne room. In 3 hours, the primitive mammals called humans would give their answer. Around him, his generals and admirals stood waiting. The emperor was even more terrifying than Commander Vexhai. He was nearly 10 feet tall, covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Ancient scars marked his face and arms, trophies from 1,000 battles. His 4 eyes glowed like burning stars as he watched the timer tick down. Your Majesty, said Admiral Krextor, bowing deeply. "The first armada stands ready to depart for the human home system. 200 ships of the line, including your personal flagship." "Excellent." The Emperor's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "How long will it take to exterminate them once we arrive?" "No more than a few hours, Majesty. Their entire fleet is perhaps 200 vessels, primitive chemical rockets and simple nuclear weapons. We will destroy them before they can even scratch our hulls." Vashitar nodded approvingly. This was how it always went. First came the ultimatum, then came the desperate attempts to negotiate. Finally came the quick, brutal conquest. In his long reign, only 3 species had actually chosen to fight rather than submit. All 3 were now extinct. The timer reached 0. Every communication system in the Zelkarian Empire suddenly activated at once. On every ship, every planet, every space station, screens lit up with the same image. A blue and white world spinning, slowly in space with a single message written in golden letters: Earth. Then a human voice began to speak. It was Admiral Morrison, though the Zelkarians did not know his name yet. "Citizens of the galaxy," Morrison said calmly. "My name is James Morrison, speaking for the people of Earth and the human species. 28 days ago, representatives of the Zelkarian Empire visited our space. They delivered an ultimatum demanding our submission and the enslavement of our people." Emperor Vashtar leaned forward on his throne. This was unusual. Most species begged for mercy in their surrender messages. "We have carefully considered this demand," Morrison continued. "We have studied your empire, your methods, and your crimes against other species. We have reviewed footage of your prison worlds, your slave camps, and your systematic genocide of any people who resist your rule." The Admiral paused. When he spoke again, his voice was harder. "Our answer is no." Shocked murmurs filled the throne room. Emperor Vashitar's claws scraped against the arms of his throne. "Furthermore," Morrison said, "we reject not only your ultimatum to us but your right to rule over any species in this galaxy. We have seen what you do to conquered peoples. We have witnessed your cruelty and your brutality. It ends now." The image changed to show files and recordings. Zelkarian war crimes documented in careful detail. Prison camps where alien beings were worked to death. Entire planets strip-mined until nothing remained. Children separated from their parents and sent to re-education centers. "We are transmitting this data to every world in Zelkarian space," Morrison announced. "Let all beings see what their so-called emperor truly is. Let them know that resistance is possible." Emperor Vashitar stood up from his throne, his massive form trembling with rage. "Cut the transmission," he roared. "We cannot, Majesty," replied the communications chief, frantically working at his controls. "They have overridden our entire network. Every relay station, every satellite, every ship in the fleet is broadcasting their signal." On screen, Admiral Morrison was still speaking. "To the enslaved peoples of the galaxy, we say this: your chains can be broken. To the Zelkarian Empire, we say this: your reign of terror is over. And to Emperor Vashitar personally, we say this." Morrison looked directly into the camera. His eyes were cold as winter stars. "Go to hell." The transmission ended. The throne room fell silent except for the sound of the Emperor's heavy breathing. "Kill them," Vashitar said quietly. "Kill them all, not just the humans. Every single living thing in their star system. I want their sun turned into a black hole. I want their worlds cracked open like eggs." "Yes, Majesty," Admiral Krextor said quickly. "The first armada will depart immediately." But even as the Zelkarian ships prepared for war, something unprecedented was happening across their empire. On 100 different worlds, the human transmission was being copied and shared in secret. Slave workers gathered in hidden corners to whisper about the species that had dared to say no. On the industrial world of Kethmore Prime, an alien artist named Silania watched the human message for the 15th time. Her people had been enslaved. For 3 centuries, forced to mass-produce weapons and ships for the Empire, but now she felt something she had not experienced in decades. Hope. She began to draw. Simple pictures at first, scratched into the metal walls of the factory dormitories where the workers slept. Pictures of broken chains, pictures of empty guard towers, pictures of the blue world called Earth. Other workers saw her drawings and began making their own. The movement spread through the factory complex like wildfire. Within days, Zelkarian overseers were finding anti-empire graffiti everywhere they looked. On the science world of Vorthai, engineer Kodrim received an encrypted message through channels he didn't know existed. It contained technical specifications for human weapons and defensive systems. The designs were crude by Zelkarian standards, but they showed something remarkable: creative problem-solving under impossible odds. Kodrim had spent his life designing ships and weapons for his captors. Now, for the first time, he began designing them for someone else. The message had also reached the warrior clans of Drexhai. These proud beings had fought the Zelkarian invasion for 50 years before finally being overwhelmed. Their leader, War Chief Grondar, had spent the last decade planning a hopeless final rebellion. Now, perhaps, it wouldn't be so hopeless after all. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in her underground laboratory on Earth, reading reports that came from across the galaxy. Somehow, impossibly, other species were reaching out to humanity. Encoded messages hidden in routine communications, technical data smuggled out of research facilities, even crude star maps showing weak points in Zelkarian defenses. "We're not alone in this," she told Admiral Morrison during their daily briefing. "Half the galaxy wants to see the Empire fall. They just needed someone to fire the first shot." "Good," Morrison replied grimly, "because we're going to need all the help we can get. Our scouts report the Zelkarian First Armada has left their home system. 200 heavy cruisers plus their flagship. They'll reach Earth in 16 days. Are we ready?" Morrison looked out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, hidden in the asteroid belt and the outer planets, Earth's defenses were waiting. "We're as ready as we can be," he said. "The mining platforms have been converted. The nuclear weapons are in position. Every ship in the fleet has been armed with the new kinetic projectiles." He paused. "Elena, I need to ask you about your research. The biological weapons project, are they ready?" Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a long moment. "They're ready," she said finally. "But James, once we use them, there's no going back. The galaxy will see what humans are truly capable of. Some of our new allies might decide we're just as dangerous as the Zelkarians. Maybe we are," Morrison said softly. "Maybe that's what it takes to survive out here." Across the galaxy, the Zelkarian war machine ground into motion. Fleets of ships converged on staging areas. Armies of soldiers prepared for deployment. The Empire had fought hundreds of wars and never lost a single one. This would be no different. Emperor Vashatar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dark Conquest. Through the windows, he could see the rest of the First Armada. Each ship was a masterpiece of destructive power, armed with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop the light of stars. "Majesty," reported the ship's captain, "we have entered hyperspace. Arrival at the human home system in 15 days, 18 hours. "Excellent." The Emperor's claws traced patterns on the armrest of his command chair. "Signal all ships. When we arrive, I want everything in that system destroyed. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid, leave nothing but empty space." "And if they surrender, Majesty?" Vashatar's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "They chose defiance over submission. They forfeited their right to mercy when they told me to go to hell." The Emperor turned back to the stars. Soon the humans would learn what happened to species who dared to challenge the Zelkarian Empire. Their pitiful fleets would be swept away like dust before a hurricane. Their worlds would burn until nothing remained but ash and memory. Or so he thought. Deep in Earth's solar system, automated sensors detected the approaching Zelkarian fleet. Warnings went out instantly to every human ship and station. The enemy was coming. Admiral Morrison received the alert while reviewing final battle plans. He looked up at the star map showing the positions of Earth's defenders and smiled grimly. "Signal all units," he ordered. "Operation Mousetrap is now in effect. All ships to designated positions, and send a message to our new friends across the galaxy." "What should the message say, Admiral?" Morrison's eyes were as cold as the space between stars. Tell them the war has begun. The Zelkarian First Armada dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system like a swarm of metallic predators. 200 warships spread out in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming with weapons ports and sensor arrays. At their center, Emperor Vashitar's flagship Dark Conquest dominated the fleet like a moving mountain of death. Admiral Krextor stood beside his emperor on the bridge, studying the scanner displays with confusion. Majesty, I'm reading no defensive formations. The human home system appears to be empty. Vashitar leaned forward in his command throne. Through the vast windows of the bridge, he could see the distant yellow star that the humans called Sol. There should have been hundreds of ships rushing to defend their worlds. Instead, there was only silence. Perhaps they have fled, suggested Captain Mordak. Many species attempt to evacuate their populations when they realize resistance is hopeless. No, the Emperor said slowly. His 4 eyes glowed with suspicion. Scan everything. Every planet, every moon, every piece of space debris. I want to know where they are hiding. The Armada moved deeper into the solar system, sensors probing in all directions. They passed the outer planets without incident. Jupiter's massive bulk showed no signs of hidden fleets. Saturn's rings were analyzed and found to contain nothing but ice and rock. Still nothing, Majesty, Krextor reported. Wait. I'm detecting energy signatures from the 3rd planet. The human homeworld. The main display lit up with an image of Earth. The blue and white world hung peacefully in space, exactly as it had appeared in the human transmission. But now, massive structures were visible in orbit. Space stations, defensive platforms, and what appeared to be weapons emplacements. There, Vashitar said with satisfaction. They're making their final stand at their homeworld. How pathetically predictable. Shall I order the attack, Majesty? Not yet. The Emperor's scarred face twisted into something resembling a smile. Open a channel to the planet. I want them to see their doom approaching. The communication went through immediately. On the screen appeared Admiral Morrison, standing calmly on what was clearly a military command center. Behind him, human officers worked at various control stations. Emperor Vashtar, Morrison said politely. Right on time. We've been expecting you. You should be cowering in terror, mammal, Vashitar growled. Instead, you stand there as if you have already won. Do you not comprehend your situation? 200 ships of the line against your pitiful orbital defenses? Morrison actually smiled. Oh, I comprehend our situation perfectly. The question is, do you comprehend yours? Before the Emperor could respond, Morrison pressed a button on his command console. The trap sprung. From the asteroid belt came the first wave. What the Zelkarians had assumed were ordinary space rocks suddenly blazed to life with fusion drives and targeting systems. Dozens of converted mining platforms, each the size of a city block, began accelerating toward the Armada. Asteroid missiles, shouted the sensor operator. Massive energy signatures. They're using mining equipment as weapons. But that was only the beginning. From behind Jupiter's moons emerged more ships, sleek human cruisers that had been hiding in the gas giant's shadow, their hulls black as space and nearly invisible to scanners. They moved with deadly precision, closing on the Zelkarian formation. Contact from Neptune orbit, another operator called out. Multiple fusion signatures. They're everywhere. Vashitar watched in growing alarm as more and more human ships revealed themselves. They had been hidden throughout the outer system, waiting patiently for the Armada to move into the perfect position. Now they were converging from all directions like the closing of a giant fist. This is impossible, breathed Admiral Krextor. Our intelligence said they had only 200 ships total. On the communications screen, Admiral Morrison was still smiling. Intelligence can be wrong, Admiral, especially when the people you're spying on know you're watching. The first exchange of fire began when the converted asteroid platforms came within range. Their weapons were crude but effective, magnetic accelerators that launched chunks of dense metal at incredible speeds. The projectiles struck Zelkarian shields with devastating impact. "Their weapons are primitive," reported the tactical officer, "but they're firing projectiles with the mass of small buildings. Shields are holding but taking significant drain." Emperor Vashitar snarled, "Return fire! Destroy those mining platforms!" The Zelkarian ships responded with energy weapons that could melt steel and plasma cannons that burned hotter than stars. Several of the asteroid platforms exploded in brilliant flashes of light. But for every one they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The humans had spent their 30 days well, converting every piece of mining equipment in the solar system into weapons of war. Then came the second surprise. "Energy spike from the human homeworld," the sensor operator shouted. "Something massive powering up." On Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the control room of humanity's most secret weapon. Around her, teams of scientists made final preparations for what they hoped would end the battle quickly. "Orbital laser array is fully charged," reported the chief engineer. "All fusion reactors operating at maximum output." Elena looked up at the display showing the enemy fleet. Each Zelkarian ship was a masterpiece of engineering, protected by shields that could deflect most energy weapons. But the humans had discovered something interesting in their analysis of captured Zelkarian technology. "Fire," Elena said quietly. From Earth's surface came a beam of coherent light, powerful enough to illuminate the entire solar system. It was not one laser, but thousands. Their beams combined and focused through orbital mirrors into a weapon of unimaginable power. The beam struck the Zelkarian flagship's shields and punched through them like they were made of paper. It carved a glowing line across the ship's hull, venting atmosphere and debris into space. "Impossible!" Emperor Vashitar roared as his flagship shuddered around him. "Our shields can stop anything." On the communication screen, Admiral Morrison leaned forward. "Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons, plasma cannons, particle beams. They're not designed to stop the focused output of an entire planet's power grid." The human fleet was closing now, their ships darting between the Zelkarian vessels like wolves attacking a herd. They moved with coordination that spoke of months of planning and preparation. "Sir," Morrison's tactical officer reported, "enemy ships are beginning to break formation. They're trying to retreat to hyperspace." "Negative," Morrison replied calmly. "Activate the inhibitor field." Throughout the solar system, hidden devices began broadcasting a specific frequency of energy. The field they created made hyperspace travel impossible within its boundaries. The Zelkarian ships were trapped. Emperor Vashitar felt something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. His mighty armada was being systematically destroyed by creatures he had dismissed as primitive mammals. Worse, they were using tactics no civilized species would ever consider. "Majesty," Admiral Krextor called out. "The humans are broadcasting something on all frequencies. They're... What are they broadcasting?" Krextor's face had gone pale. "They're transmitting the screams of our dying crews. They're using our own communication systems against us, sending the sounds of battle to every ship in the fleet." The psychological warfare was devastating. Zelkarian soldiers had been raised to believe their empire was invincible. Now they could hear their comrades dying ship by ship as the human wolves closed in. But the humans saved their worst surprise for last. "Unknown projectiles incoming," the sensor operator reported. "They're too small for our defenses to track effectively." The projectiles were nuclear missiles, but not the crude devices the Zelkarians expected. These were enhanced with technology stolen from their own ships, guided by artificial intelligence and armed with warheads designed specifically for Zelkarian biology. When the first missile detonated against a Zelkarian cruiser, the explosion was not just destructive. It was radioactive in exactly the right frequencies to be lethal to the alien's cellular structure. "The radiation!" screamed the cruiser's captain over the radio. "It's killing us! The radiation is killing us!" Dr. Vasquez watched from Earth as ship after ship fell victim to humanity's biological warfare. She had spent weeks studying Zelkarian DNA, learning how their high-gravity evolution had made them vulnerable to specific types of radiation. "They're dying," she said quietly to Admiral Morrison. The enhanced nuclear weapons are working exactly as designed. Morrison nodded grimly. Any word from our friends in the outer galaxy? Yes, sir. The liberation fleets are moving. 16 different worlds have begun simultaneous uprisings. The Zelkarian Empire is fighting fires on dozens of fronts. On the bridge of the Dark Conquest, Emperor Vashtar watched his armada die. Of 200 ships that had entered the system, fewer than 50 remained operational. The humans had turned what should have been a simple extermination into a massacre. Majesty, Admiral Krextor said desperately. We must retreat. Call for reinforcements. This system is lost. No. Vashatar smashed his claw against the armrest of his throne. I will not retreat from mammals. Order all remaining ships to ram the human vessels. If we cannot defeat them, we will at least take some of them with us. News of the First Armada's destruction spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On 1,000 worlds, slaves whispered the impossible story to each other in the darkness. The mighty Zelkarian Empire had been defeated. 12 ships had limped home from a fleet of 200. The humans were coming. Emperor Vashitar stood in his throne room, staring at the tactical display that showed the collapse of his empire. Red warning lights blinked across 17 sectors as rebellion broke out on world after world. The creatures he had ruled with terror for centuries had finally found their courage. Report, he commanded, his voice echoing off the black walls. General, Korthvar stepped forward. He was one of the few survivors of the Sol System battle, and the experience had changed him. His scales had lost their luster, and his eyes held shadows that had not been there before. Majesty, the situation is deteriorating rapidly. The Kethmore system has declared independence. The Vorthon shipyards have been seized by rebel forces. 3 of our major prison worlds have been liberated by coordinated uprisings. And the humans? Korthvar's? Claws clicked nervously against his armor. They are everywhere, Majesty. Their fleets have appeared in 16 different systems simultaneously. They move with impossible speed and coordination. The Emperor's 4 eyes blazed with fury. Impossible speed? They are primitives with chemical rockets. No longer, Majesty. The General activated a holographic display showing footage from the recent battles. They have somehow acquired hyperspace technology. Their ships jump in without warning, strike with devastating force, then vanish before our fleets can respond. On the display, human ships danced between Zelkarian vessels like deadly ghosts. They moved with precision that spoke of superior technology and planning. Worse, they seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. How? Vashatar demanded. How do they know our weaknesses? Korthvar hesitated. Majesty, we believe they have been receiving intelligence from inside sources. The Emperor's roar shook the entire palace. Traitors, find them and execute them all. It may be too late for that, Majesty. The rebellion has spread too far. Even some of our own people are beginning to question. Vashtar's claw swept across Korthvar's face, leaving 3 bleeding lines. Question what? Our divine right to rule? Our superiority over the lesser species? The general touched his wounded face but did not flinch. They question whether we can win, Majesty. In the Vorthon engineering facility on Nexus Prime, Kodrim worked frantically alongside his human contact. Captain Sarah Chen had arrived 3 days ago with a small strike force, liberating the massive shipyard complex where the Empire built its largest vessels. The quantum communicator is nearly ready, Kodrim reported, his 6 arms working on different parts of the device simultaneously. With this, your fleets will be able to coordinate across the entire galaxy in real time. Sarah watched the Vorthon engineer work with admiration. His people were natural geniuses, capable of understanding technology that would take humans years to develop. Under Zelkarian rule, they had been forced to design weapons of oppression. Now they were building tools of liberation. How long until the Empire sends reinforcements? She asked. 3 days, perhaps 4, Kodrim replied. But by then we will have transmitted the shield harmonics to all rebel fleets. Zelkarian defensive technology will be useless. Sarah nodded. The plan was audacious but necessary. Humanity could not defeat the Empire through force alone. They needed allies. They needed intelligence. And most importantly, they needed to turn the Empire's own technology against itself. Her communicator crackled to life. "Captain Chen, this is Admiral Morrison. What's your status?" "Objective secured. Admiral, the Vorthon shipyards are under Allied control. We've captured 17 heavy cruisers and gained access to their entire technical database." "Outstanding. Be advised, we're detecting massive fleet movements from the Zelkarian core worlds. They're not going to let us keep our gains without a fight." Sarah looked out through the transparent aluminum windows of the facility. In the distance, she could see the construction bays where Zelkarian warships had been built for centuries. Now those same bays were being retooled to produce vessels for the rebellion. "Understood, Admiral. How goes the liberation of Kethmore Prime?" Morrison's voice was grim. "That's why I'm calling. We need to discuss our tactics. The Zelkarians they're executing prisoners in retaliation for our attacks. Thousands of them." Sarah felt her stomach turn cold. This was the nightmare scenario they had all feared. The Empire was becoming more brutal as it grew more desperate. On the industrial world of Kethmore Prime, Silanya huddled with the other survivors in the ruins of Factory Complex 7. The Zelkarian guards had executed half the workers when news of the rebellion reached them. Bodies lay scattered across the factory floor, a warning to anyone who might consider resistance. But the warning had come too late. The spark of hope was already burning too brightly to be extinguished by fear. "They will come," whispered Veltar, an elderly Kethmori who had survived 3 decades of slavery. "The humans will come for us." "The humans are probably dead already," replied Korjan, his voice bitter with despair. "The Empire has fought 1,000 wars. They have never lost." Silanya looked up from the crude drawing she was scratching into the metal floor. It showed a human ship, sleek and deadly, swooping down from the stars. "They beat the first armada," she said quietly. 200 ships destroyed. I heard the guards talking about it." "Impossible," Korjan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "The guards seemed to believe it," Silanya replied. "They're scared. For the first time in my life, I've seen Zelkarians who are actually afraid." As if summoned by her words, the facility's alarm system began wailing. Red lights flashed throughout the complex as the warning message repeated in the harsh Zelkarian language. "Unknown ships approaching. All personnel to defensive positions." Through the factory windows, the prisoners could see streaks of light falling from the sky like falling stars. But these stars were moving too precisely, too purposefully, to be anything natural. The human fleet had arrived. The battle for Kethmore Prime lasted 18 hours. The Zelkarian garrison fought with the desperation of cornered animals, knowing that defeat meant not just death, but the end of everything they had believed about their own superiority. But the humans fought with something more powerful than desperation. They fought with righteous fury. Admiral Morrison commanded the Liberation Fleet from his flagship Retribution. Around him, his bridge crew worked with grim efficiency as they coordinated the complex orbital assault. "Target the guard towers first," Morrison ordered. "Surgical strikes only. I want minimal damage to the civilian areas." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Zelkarians are using prisoners as human shields. They've positioned them around their defensive installations." Morrison's jaw tightened. This was exactly the kind of tactic they had expected. The Empire was willing to sacrifice anyone to maintain its power. "Signal to all ships," he said. "Implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was humanity's answer to the Empire's cruelty. Instead of the massive bombardments that had characterized the Sol system battle, the human ships deployed thousands of small, precision-guided projectiles. Each one was equipped with sensors and artificial intelligence, capable of distinguishing between targets and innocent civilians. The results were devastating for the Zelkarian defenders. Guard towers exploded with pinpoint accuracy. Weapons emplacements were destroyed without harming nearby prisoner barracks. It was surgical warfare taken to an almost impossible level of precision. Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the operation from her mobile laboratory ship Hippocrates. She had insisted on being present for the liberation operations, partly to study the effects of the new weapons, but mostly to ensure that humanity's methods remained as humane as possible. "Admiral," she reported, "bioweapon deployment was successful. The enhanced viruses are spreading through the Zelkarian population centers as designed. Estimated 96% infection rate within 4 hours." Morrison nodded grimly. The biological weapons were perhaps humanity's most controversial creation. Engineered to target Zelkarian DNA specifically, they caused rapid cellular breakdown in the aliens while remaining completely harmless to other species. Casualty estimates? Military casualties approaching 100%. Civilian populations are experiencing severe but non-fatal symptoms. They'll recover fully within 7 days. It was a level of precision that bordered on the miraculous. The humans had found a way to eliminate armed resistance while sparing non-combatants. It was warfare with a scalpel instead of a sword, but precision came at a cost in time and resources. Each liberation operation required months of preparation and intelligence gathering. Meanwhile, the Empire was mobilizing its vast reserves for a counterattack. On the bridge of his personal dreadnought Final Dominion, Emperor Vashitar watched the tactical displays with growing rage. "System after fully assembled, Majesty," Admiral Krextor reported. 5,000 ships of the line, including 20 dreadnoughts and your personal flagship. It is the largest force ever assembled in galactic history. Vashitar smiled, showing his rows of razor-sharp teeth. "And our SE." The Zelkarian core fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, like an armored fist descending from the heavens. 5,000 ships spread across space in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with enough firepower to crack continents. At their center, Emperor Vashitar's flagship Final Dominion commanded the vast armada like a mountain of black metal and death. "Magnificent," the Emperor whispered, gazing out at his assembled forces. "The largest fleet in galactic history. Today we end the human rebellion forever." Admiral Krextor stood beside his master, studying the scanner displays with growing confusion. "Majesty, I'm detecting the same anomaly as before. The human system appears to be largely empty." "Another trap?" Vashitar's 4 eyes narrowed dangerously. "They used that strategy once. They will not fool us twice." "Perhaps, Majesty. But our sensors are far more advanced this time. If they are hiding ships, we will find them." The core fleet advanced slowly, scanners probing every asteroid, every moon, every possible hiding place. Behind them came the 3 planet killers, massive dreadnoughts equipped with weapons capable of shattering worlds. If the humans wanted to play games, Vashitar would show them the price of defying an empire. On Earth, Admiral Morrison stood in the deep command bunker beneath the Rockies, watching the approaching enemy fleet on the main display. Around him, his staff worked at control stations while Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored her biological weapons from a separate console. "Estimated time to orbital range?" Morrison asked. 6 hours, Admiral," his tactical officer replied. "They're moving, cautiously, probably expecting another ambush." Morrison nodded. The Zelkarians had learned from their first defeat, but not the right lessons. They thought the problem had been insufficient force. They were about to discover that some problems could not be solved with bigger weapons. "Status of the Omega Protocol?" "Doctor." Vasquez looked up from her console, her face pale but determined. "All systems are ready, Admiral. The orbital platforms are charged and the biological agents are loaded. But James, I have to ask one more time. Are you sure about this?" "Elena, they brought planet killers to destroy our world. They're not coming here for conquest anymore. They want extermination." Morrison's voice was cold as winter space. Sometimes the only way to stop a monster is to become something worse. High above Earth, hidden platforms that had been disguised as orbital debris suddenly came to life. These were not the crude mining conversions from the first battle. These were weapons designed specifically to kill Zelkarians, built with technology stolen from their own ships and improved by human engineering. The first surprise came when the core fleet reached Jupiter's orbit. What appeared to be routine, Gas mining operations suddenly revealed themselves as massive weapon platforms. Fusion-powered magnetic accelerators hurled streams of projectiles toward the Zelkarian formation at incredible speeds. "Contact!" the sensor operator shouted. "Multiple hostile platforms throughout the outer system. They're using the gas giant operations as camouflage." Emperor Vashitar snarled as his ship's shields flared under the bombardment. "Clever mammals, but crude tactics will not save them. Signal the planet killers, prepare to demonstrate the price of resistance." The three massive dreadnoughts moved forward, their world-cracking weapons beginning to charge with ominous energy. Each planet killer was a monument to Zelkarian engineering, capable of generating enough force to split a planet's crust or ignite its atmosphere. That was when humanity revealed its true nature. "Admiral," Dr. Vasquez reported from her console, "the Zelkarian fleet is now within optimal range. Omega Protocol is ready for activation." Morrison stared at the display showing 5,000 enemy ships closing on his homeworld. Each one carried enough firepower to level cities. The planet killers alone could turn Earth into a lifeless rock. "Do it," he said quietly. Around Earth's orbit, 1,000 hidden platforms simultaneously fired what appeared to be harmless metallic dust into space. The particles spread out in clouds that drifted toward the approaching Zelkarian fleet, like glittering fog. "Unknown projectiles detected," the core fleet sensor operator reported. "Microscopic size, no apparent weapon signatures." "Ignore them," Admiral Krextor ordered. "Probably some desperate attempt at electronic countermeasures. Focus on the real threats." The Zelkarian fleet continued its advance, passing through the particle clouds without apparent effect. Their shields barely registered the impact of the tiny metal fragments. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the screaming began. On the bridge of the cruiser, Dark Talon, Captain Mordek was reviewing attack formations when his communications officer collapsed. The Zelkarian warrior writhed on the floor, clawing at his throat as if trying to tear something out. "Medical team to the bridge," Mordek shouted. But before the medics could arrive, his weapons officer began convulsing as well. Within minutes, the screams were echoing throughout the ship. Zelkarian crew members fell to the deck, their scales turning black as their cellular structure began breaking down at the molecular level. The same scene played out across the core fleet. Ship after ship reported the same mysterious plague spreading through their crews. It started with difficulty breathing, then escalated to organ failure and cellular collapse. "What is happening?" Emperor Vashitar demanded as reports flooded in from across his fleet. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the biological readouts from her console on Earth. The Omega Protocol was working exactly as designed, and it terrified her. "The metallic particles were delivery systems," she explained to Admiral Morrison. "Microscopic robots programmed to seek out Zelkarian DNA. Once they make contact, they release a designer virus that attacks their nervous and respiratory systems. Casualty estimates: 98% infection rate across their entire fleet. The virus is spreading through their ventilation systems faster than they can contain it." Morrison felt a mix of satisfaction and horror. The weapon was devastatingly effective, but it represented a line crossed that could never be uncrossed. Humanity had created the perfect genocide machine. On the final Dominion, Emperor Vashitar watched his mighty armada die around him. Ship after ship went dark as their crews succumbed to the human plague. Even his own bridge crew was beginning to show symptoms. "The planet killers," he gasped, his breathing becoming labored. "Are they still operational?" "Two are down, Majesty," Admiral Krextor reported weakly. "The World Ender is still functional, but barely. Most of its crew is dead." Vashitar struggled to his feet, his massive form swaying as the virus attacked his system. "Signal the World Ender. Full power to main weapon. Target the human homeworld." "Majesty, the crew is dying. They may not be able to—" "Do it!" the Emperor roared, then collapsed as a coughing fit racked his body. Black blood stained his claws. The World Ender slowly turned its massive bulk toward Earth. Its planet-killing weapon began to charge, drawing power from every system on the ship. If the Zelkarian Empire was going to die, it would take humanity with it. That was when the humans played their final card. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zelkarian flagship. Emperor Vashitar wants to speak with you. Morrison looked at the man. Put him through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the Emperor slumped on his command throne. His once mighty form was racked with disease, his scales blackened and his eyes dim. But his hatred burned as bright as ever. You have won, mammal. Vashitar wheezed. My fleet is dying. My empire is crumbling. But you will not live to enjoy your victory. Morrison could see the tactical display showing the planet killers, weapon charging. In less than an hour it would fire and Earth would die. Emperor, Morrison said calmly. I'm going to offer you something your species has never offered anyone else. Mercy. Vashitar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Mercy? From the creatures who created this plague? You are as merciless as we are. You're right, Morrison admitted. We can be just as ruthless as you when we need to be, but we can also choose to be better. He leaned forward. Order your planet killer to stand down, and I'll transmit the antivirus to your fleet. Your people can live. And be slaves to mammals? Never. Not slaves. Partners. The galaxy needs to change, and it needs leaders who understand that strength doesn't have to mean cruelty. For a long moment, Vashitar was silent. Around him, his bridge crew lay dying or dead. Through his ship's windows, he could see the rest of his fleet drifting dark and lifeless through space. Why? He asked finally. Why offer mercy to your enemies? Morrison was quiet for a moment. Because someone has to break the cycle. Your empire ruled through fear and violence for 1,000 years. If we respond with nothing but fear and violence, we're no better than you were. The Emperor looked at Admiral Morrison with something approaching respect. You realize that many of my people will never accept this? That they will continue to fight? Then we'll deal with those problems as they come, but we'll try to do it without genocide. Vashtar closed his 4 eyes. When he opened them again, they held a weariness that seemed to come from his very soul. World Ender, he said into his communicator. Stand down. Power down all weapon systems. Majesty? Came the confused reply. Stand down. That is a direct order from your Emperor.